Hello. Hello. Am I audible? No, I'm not audible. Hello. Hello. Can you all see my screen? Are you able to see it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll quickly get started. For those of you still not able to join, I'm just messaging a couple of them who've asked for password. I don't know why this password thing came. Okay, cool.
Hi, sir.
Hello. Hi, Aman. Hey guys, how many participants? Oh, we have 7 of them. Great. Awesome. We're just getting started. Last class, the two sessions, yes, last class, the previous session, and today's session is a trial session. We are just doing it to test out our. Wait, hold on. I'm just gonna. How do I mute? Manage participants, mute all. I'm just gonna mute all of you for the time being so that we don't have disturbances in the audio. This session, what we're doing currently is to ensure that the streaming becomes proper. We have a couple of problems. The last video that we recorded had issues with the overlay. We could not see this entire browser here when we had the session recorded. So I'm gonna change all of that. So we're trying to do this. So the previous session and today's session is primarily to understand how this works, how the session is going to be. The next session onwards, you will not have a limit of 40 minutes. We're going to do it for at least 1 hour, so that Zoom limit will be eliminated from the next session. We're planning to do this continuously so that we have a lot of topics that we could cover, and maybe over the next 1.5 months, we could do a lot of learning together. Okay. To go further from what we did last class, and for those of you who missed out last class, we saw the environment of Fusion, how it works, and from there we used hold on. Yeah, we used Fusion environment to be able to design a model. This is the environment. The first setting that we did was here in documents, where we changed the units to mm, that is millimeter. This is important because when you're drawing something, you also have to ensure that it is according to the measurements. Any object that you take should be something that is measurable and that you will draw. We looked at planes. A 3D model is a three-dimensional model. Anything that you see on a piece of paper, or a photograph is a two-dimensional thing. If you want to convert or start bringing anything into the digital platform, which the object that is there in the environment into a digital platform, you can usually start with drawing, and then you will go into making a model of it. So earlier softwares that you would have probably used would be Microsoft Paint, maybe some kind of a drawing tool where you used to do 2D drawings. So here also in Fusion we start with a 2D model and then we get to a 3D model. To start with the 2D model, the very first thing that we do is, this is our environment. This is where I get to see my different views. What you see here is the settings that is useful for me to do zoom in, zoom out, pan and all that. I have grids here, so I can make the grid visible and invisible using this option. I also have views. I can do my display settings, zoom in, zoom out, fit to view, look at a particular point from a particular angle. All of these things are here. This here on the left corner is called the timeline, where it gives you a timeline of how you've done things. So for example, you wanted to change something, go back, you can always go back using this option and change a particular parameter so that you don't have to redo the entire thing all over again. Okay, cool. Now okay, let's get started. I'm going to do exactly same thing what we did last time, and then we'll go further. So I try to create a sketch. So click on create sketch. We did not talk about shortcuts, which we're going to talk about in this particular session. What you see here is 3 dimensions. The 3 dimensions where I can choose one of the dimensions to start with. So these are also called 3 planes. This is the bottom plane, the left plane, the right plane. Or if this is the y-axis, this is the z-axis, this is the x-axis and z-axis. So the green one let's call it y-axis, the red we'll call it x-axis, and the blue we call it the z-axis. So the bottom plane is called the xz plane. The plane here is called the xy plane, and the plane here is called the yz plane. Now this is only to name, because anything that we do, if not for a computer, if you are using a pen and paper, you'll only be able to do in 2D. You cannot do a 3D model in using a pen and paper. Okay, so I will choose one of the planes. Let me choose the bottom plane. Select a plane or planar face. I select this, and then what I do is I'll change my view. For some of you, it will automatically turn to that particular view. Now, once I have, you see grids here, which basically is in terms of measurement. I want to start with a circle. Okay, so either I can select from here, these are most commonly used things, or I can go to create, go to option circle. There are multiple ways of drawing a circle. The usual way or the most common way is a center diameter circle, where you start from the center and move outwards. There are multiple other ways of drawing circle as well. We'll start with the center diameter circle. I need a center, and I also need the diameter. Once I define the center and the diameter, I'll be able to draw the circle. Now this is my center, which is the origin, and I want my diameter to be 100 mm. 100 mm is 10 centimeters. Okay. Now look at this object. You will see that it is bound. When I say bound, it is bound to a particular position here as the origin, and which means if I ask you, give a different plane, ask you to locate this object, it's very easy for you to locate. You know it is at the origin and it is of 10 centimeter diameter. So it's easy for you to locate this object. Now let me draw another circle and show you what's the difference. I draw another circle somewhere here, maybe on the z-axis or the x-axis, and I draw the circle. Okay, hold on. Yeah, I want to draw a circle from here. I draw it maybe about 50 mm and press enter. Now look at this circle. It is not black in color. It has a light blue shade on the outside. This is primarily because it is not bound to a particular position. I have only defined that this circle has to be on this axis, the red line, which means I can move this circle everywhere around, because it is not defined as to where exactly the circle has to be. Now how do I define? for defining, I have something called dimension. I define the dimension telling this center to this origin should be 10 centimeters, or this center to this origin has to be 50 centimeters. Now how do I define that? I go to create, I have option called sketch dimension. Click on sketch dimension. I am telling this center to this point has to be 100, which is 10 centimeters. Now what happens here? I have only defined the center to be 10 centimeters, which means I still can move it around. You see this? I cannot move it any farther, but I can move it in this line because now this center and this line, which means this line, this distance is always going to be 10 centimeters. Now if I have to bind it, then I have to do one more thing. I use dimension telling this point and this point, sorry, hold on, yeah, this distance is supposed to be 0. Oh, what happened? Can't do that. Okay, let me just make it 10 mm and find out what's wrong. Okay, now when I defined it as 10 mm, now I will, you can see the circle color is changed to black, and in no way I can move it any further. I cannot move this because it is fixed. Now with respect to the origin, the circle distance is fixed. Similarly, you want to draw a rectangle somewhere here and you want it to be a particular distance from a particular object, you can define it this way. Now we are going back to how we were doing our initial thing. Now let's do two cylinders. If I have to do a cylinder, I know that I have to extrude these objects in a particular axis. Now to extrude, I have option called create. Where is extrude? Solid, yes. Solids, create, extrude, click on the plane, and then how much do you want? Now for doing this, I want to change my view to the home view so that I get an isometric view of this object. I want to extrude it in this direction. I want to extrude it by about 50 mm, that is about 5 centimeters. Now what happened to the other object? Because I have not extruded, now it's in the 3D it's not no more a 2D object, it is a 3D object. Now what happened here is I created this particular object. Suppose I wanted to do the other one as well. Here, this one, I have not extruded this, so that's the reason why you wouldn't see it. If I want to extrude this, what I do is I sketch, I go to this option here, right click and say edit feature, and then I select this as well, and both of this is 50 mm. Okay, so I have this. Now if you see here, there are two bodies that are created. This is body 1 and this is body 2. Alright. Now in terms of sketch, I have only one sketch created. Now this is a challenge because if I want to edit something, I will not be able to edit it individually. I will have to go to sketch and edit both of them separately. Now this is basics of Fusion, how you do a 3D model, how we could do multiple things. Suppose we want to create a hollow in the center. Say for example, I want to make this glass instead of a block like this. What I can do is go to create. I have something called create sketch. Where do I want to create sketch? I want to create sketch on this. Select that, this surface. So you see there's a sketch 2, that's because I'm doing the sketch on this. Now let me do the top view, and from here I'll try to create a circle, or I create a offset. Now what is offset? I want to draw a circle but with equal distance from the boundary. Now look at how we do it. Click on offset. Which curve? This curve. I want to create something like this. Now what does this define? This defines how much, should be the thickness of your container. Say I say the container thickness should be about 2 mm, and press enter. You get it? You see? Oh, it's created another way. Let me just go edit it. Right click. Sorry. Yeah. Instead of doing 2, I want it to be -2. So I want it to be on the inside, and press enter. Now what I do is I finish the sketch. See, whenever it is in the sketch mode, you have to ensure that you finish the sketch and then go into doing your 3D model. If you do not finish the sketch, say you are done with all the sketching, only then you can go into your 3D mode. You will not be able to select any of the options to extrude and other things because it's still in the sketch mode. So finish the sketch. What I do is click on extrude and select this surface and go down all the way. Okay. Now interesting thing here is what should be your thickness on the bottom. If you want it to be still 5 mm, go ahead and select -45, because you know that the height of this cylinder is 50 mm, and -45 ensures that the thickness below of the bottom pan is 5 mm. I can select -45 and say there are operations, right? We want to cut or intersect. I want to cut, and direction is one side, and say OK. Now if you see, how am I able to rotate this object? I hold the shift key and then use my center scroll button. I press the center scroll button and I am able to rotate it. Now few of you will have different other ways of doing it. I will teach you a little later how you can change these shortcuts. So this is how I've done my bottom cylinder, maybe a pan with a height of 50 mm and a diameter of 10 mm, which is 10 centimeters. Now what you see here is another cylinder. You can do some editing on this cylinder. Right click, create a sketch. I want to create a sketch on this surface. So I want to create a rectangle, but I want to create a center rectangle from here. I want to say this here and say OK. Now that I have not defined the dimensions properly, that's the reason why you see this blue color. When I have to extrude, I have to first finish the sketch and say extrude, click on this surface. Let me get a better view and go down or go upwards. So I click 30 mm and then press enter. You see this? Now this is the option that you have when you want to do a 3D model. Hello. Okay, okay. So this is with respect to 3D model. Let's now learn about shortcuts. Okay, in case you have any questions, you can raise your hand, so I will know that you have raised your hand. I've just muted all of you. Okay, so this is my sketch that I've created. I'm going to save it. Go to save, ask me where I want to save it, my folder that I created yesterday. This will be test 2. And save. I'm going to create a new file where we will learn about shortcuts. All right. Moment. Yes, Aman?
Are we going to learn like how to use the constraints tab?
Yes, we will. We will eventually learn. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Yes, Amog. Who asked me a question?
It's me, Jaden.
Yeah, Jaden. 1 second.
Hello.
Yes, Jaden. Tell me.
So I just wanted to know how did you this
Sorry.
offset cube
Offset.
cubical dimension? How did center
Okay.
dimension?
Okay. I'm gonna tell you that. Yes.
Offset.
Yes. 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 Okay. So the question is this. So, for example, I wanted to create a sketch. Now I'm going to also teach shortcuts. And I'm going to explain the question that he had, Jaden had. So I create and click on create sketch. I select this plane, and this is the center. I press C. The shortcut is C for circle. C and this plane, and dimension is 100, and enter. Okay. Okay. Once this is done, the question was, how did you create an offset? So offset is created using this option here, or go to create. Go to solid, create. You have option called offset. This offset. Oh, okay. It changes here. Go to sketch. You have offset. I click on one of the curves or lines that you have drawn. Click on that line, and then either move inside or move outside. This is to create concentric circles. When I move inside, it's this way. When I move outside, it's this way. So if I have to move inside, it is -5. It's going to be -5 mm. If I have to move outside, so I want to create another offset on this, which is +5 mm. Create this. Now, if I want to create a rectangle in the center, I click on center rectangle, and just look, when I just hover my mouse around the center, it just gets locked there. I have not done anything, I am just moving my mouse, it gets locked. This will help me find the center. Now I will say this is 50 mm by 50 mm. What did I do to define this dimension is use the tab key, where I can alternate between these dimensions. 50 mm, 50 mm, so it's become a square. I press enter. Now from here, if I want to create another offset, I click on this and I move inside, or I move outside. This is 5 mm, press enter. Now I'm done with my sketch. This entire thing is just one single sketch. This is how it looks. Now there are multiple things I can do. I can extrude, use this option, or I can press E for elephant, extrude, E for extrude, and extrude, and click on this closed surface and extrude it up. I'll extrude it for about 30 mm. I could also select this, or instead of that I select this. See here, I can change these to, I want to select this, I want to select this, and I say okay. Now you see what kind of an object I've got. Okay. Now in case I want to create a bottom cap for this, what I can do is, I know that this is on the plane below, so I can go to this and say create a new sketch. Where do I want to create? I want to create it on this bottom plane. Okay. I will hide these bodies for now. Using this option, I will hide these bodies. I want to create the bottom plate here, and here I want to draw a circle. What is the dimension? 105, because my previous offset that I did was plus 5. And then what I'll do is I will create I'll extrude it by pressing E and go downwards for 5 mm and press enter. Now when I enable these bodies that you see here, you've got this. Okay, there's a problem. This is not 105. Okay, how do I measure? I can use this tool called inspect here. Measure. I want to measure this circle. Says radius is 55. Radius is 55 means diameter is 110 mm. Okay, which means I did a mistake here in terms of defining my bottom lid. So let me just close this, go to home view. I'll edit the sketch which I did now. Right click, edit the sketch, and then let me just hide these bodies and click on this dimension and say 110. Okay, now I've done this. I finished my sketch, and now you see your 3D model. The bottom plate is there. Okay, now we have something here. Let's just define what is the diameter of this. Inspect, I want the diameter of this, it is about 100 mm. Okay, let's do an interesting thing. I want to create another sketch. Let me hide this body. I want to create another sketch on this. So I either can create sketch and then select, or I can right click on this surface and say create sketch. Now when I create sketch, I want to create a circle, so I press C, and from the I press C, what just happened? And I want this to be 100, and then I want to create an offset from here towards the inside, which is gonna be 5. Oops, okay, this is wrong. It's gonna be -5, -5, enter. Now what I'll do is I'll extrude this upwards, extrude this upwards a little, maybe about 10 mm, and then enable the other bodies. Okay. Now what happened is I created a lid which exactly fits inside this. Okay. I will show you how it is. Let me just hide this body. You see that lid? And this, you see that lid? So if I have to select, yeah, a view like this is the lid and this is the body. Okay. So you have three bodies here available, three different structures, and then if you want to create another body, you can probably use this, or you have another option called right click, copy, right click, paste. Okay, I have pasted another body which is body 4, but I can flip it. By I just move it up and then flip it, or I change this. Just hold on. Okay, I have this body which I'm supposed to move. I bring it up and then I flip it over. How do I flip it over? By changing the pivot. So I want to set the pivot as the center. Okay, and then I flip. Hold on. I'll just hide these bodies for now. I unselect this. I want to move. So I set pivot as the center, and from here center. Okay. Now I want to rotate this particular body. Okay, guys, in case the session gets over, you can use the same link to join again. This is only for today, and from tomorrow we will not have this dropping in between. In case the session gets over in between, just click the same link that you had for Zoom to join back again, and the password will remain the same. Okay, now I'm figuring out how this works. Yes, Gurkanwal, hold on. Yes.
So I was just want to ask, let's say I make two circles, one on the top and one on the bottom.
Yeah.
I want to align them and make like a sort of a ladder in between. So is this any way that I can align them exactly and then make this symmetrical?
Yes, possible. That's what is called constraints, which we will learn now.
Okay.
Yeah. I am somehow not able to rotate this. Okay, let's not waste much time on this. I hope you got it, but I will try this again and let you know how this works. Making this visible. Oh, let's rotate.
And
Yep, just waiting for a couple of them to join.
yeah.
Yes, sir.
Brijesh sir, when you are setting the pivot point, why are you not clicking the green color tick mark? You are selecting the pivot point and you are not affirming the option. That is why you are not able to move. You are just rotating the pivot point.
Okay, let me just do it now again. I have this. Okay. So what you're telling is, if I have to rotate this, I select this, right click, move copy. Now I have to set the pivot point. Click on set pivot point.
Yeah.
And set it.
And then you go and press the green color marker there.
Done.
Yes.
Done. Okay.
Now the pivot point is set. Now
okay.
You can handle this object. Yes.
Okay, it is flipped by 180 degree. Then I can move in this axis by 50 mm. Minus 50. Enter. So hopefully my body is covered. No, minus 50 is not the option. So I have to click on this. I'm trying to edit and bring it down a little more. Oh yes, and press enter. So my object is ready. Thank you, sir.
Cheers.
Yes, okay, cool. So these are the two lids. This is the box. Now interestingly, if you want to 3D print this, it is possible. I have 4 bodies. I create a file out of it and then send it for 3D printing, and it's ready to print. Okay, cool. I'm just moving to the next stage. Where the question that was asked is about, say, create sketch. I create sketch. I create a circle. Maybe this is 50, and then I've been asked if I can create a circle using constraints, right? Okay, I want to create a circle on top of this. Okay, so which means there's one plane here. I need another plane on the top. So I have option to finish this sketch and construct a plane as an offset. Click on offset plane. I want the plane to be parallel to this, and how far should I want it? I want it to be, say, 60 mm. Okay, I want to create a circle here, right? Now if I want to create a sketch, I click on create sketch and say I want to create on this. Where did it go? Sorry, what happened? Yeah, I want to create sketch on this. I go to top view. I hide this particular sketch. Yeah, so I want to create a sketch on this. Create sketch. Where's the plane? Yeah, on this. And I want to say at the center, create a circle. I will create somewhere here a circle of 50 mm and press enter. Okay. Now the challenge is, how do I align this and this, right? Now there are these options called constraints. See this here on this corner. I have to define constraints in this particular definition, which says I know that this one is here, so I will click on constraints. Where is my constraint? Yeah, constraints are here. I'll say concentric, this and this have to be concentric, this and this has to be concentric, but the problem is they come in the same plane, which means I don't want them to be concentric. Okay, I might have to say I want this, okay, parallel. No, I cannot. I want to be coincident. I want this and this. No, not right. Anybody has suggestions how I'll be able to bring this on this plane right in the center? I know it is in the center. I can just move it to the center.
Constraints between two sketches won't be possible.
Okay, that's interesting. Two sketches won't be possible.
I didn't understand the question, so
1 second. Okay, let's just do it in one plane for now and see if we can get it. Okay.
I didn't understand the question, Uncle.
Yes, Aman, explaining. 1 second. Yeah, okay, we did one sketch. The consideration, I mean, the question was, suppose I draw another circle somewhere here, and I want this circle to be concentric to this. How do I do it?
What is concentric?
Concentric circles have the same center.
Ah, okay.
I can move this circle around. I can also move it around all the way, but I want this center and this center to match. So for that, what I do is click on concentric. I then select my two circles. It says I failed to, why does it say failed? Finish sketch. Okay. Edit the sketch. Concentric, this circle and this circle. Please try revising dimensions or constraints. Why is that so?
Maybe you have to choose the same center.
The center is already there. Just check it. I can click. Circle somewhere here, and circle somewhere here. Somewhere here, and then I have to create constraints of concentric circles between this and this. Oh yeah. Control Z. I want to create concentric between this and this. Concentric, this and this. Okay, so this is how I do it, and after that is done, yes. Yes, somebody asked me a question. I think Jaden. Yes, Jaden.
Is there a way to move these concentric circles to the center of the shape?
To the center. Yeah, it is possible. Let me just do it. I have option 2. You're asking me to move this two circles to the center. Okay. So first, what I do is I just create a point. Where is a point? A point in the center, just to define that there is a point. Now, once this is done, I want to say, where is coincident? Coincident, and this, no, not happening. Concentric. Have I forgotten everything? Okay. Anybody to my rescue, Vibhav? I want to move this to the center. I want to move this two circles to the center.
Okay, draw a line from origin to the center of the circle.
And then make it 0.
And then, yes.
Yeah,
See if that works.
the challenge is you cannot make dimension 0. I drew a line,
Oh, right.
and then
So
this,
we never come across this kind of situation where you have to move the sketches around.
yeah,
We usually move the bodies around,
yep,
more the components. So let's not get there right now. But what we can try to do is you can still click AM for movement.
huh.
In the sketch, you can still move the objects.
Yeah.
Yes. Click both the things and then move.
Yeah. Now, what you can also see is that both of these things move together.
Because there is a constraint.
Now there's a constraint between these two circles. Okay, I can do this, where this circle to this distance is supposed to be 0. No, I cannot. Okay, 1 centimeters. Yes, 1 centimeter, 1 mm is possible, but I can't make it 0.
Okay.
Oh, you can never make dimension 0. Okay, guys, this is something that I am also learning for the first time. Thank you. You can bring it to the center, specifying dimensions here, but you can never make the 0. Can I make it? Yeah, I can almost bring it, but I can never make it 0. Almost to the center. Some errors here. Okay, so this is how you do constraints. Let's just do one more constraint and check.
Rajesh, for the constraint experiment, if you can draw our DPDT old remote holder with the 4 mounting holes.
Okay.
So that is a better example, so that you will constrain those holes to the edges and other things.
Okay, I just did a rectangle, and then in the rectangle, I want to do a box. The dimension of the box is about 70 by 70. Click enter. Now this is something that I can move around, but I want to make a constraint by defining a dimension which is d, and say this and this distance is always supposed to be 60, and this distance and this distance is always supposed to be 50. So now it is defined. Similarly, I finished the sketch. Now when I have moved this around, you see this, how that box also moves around, because I have defined this constraint. This distance should always be 60 and this distance should always be 50. Now I can also define another constraint by editing the sketch, edit sketch, d, this and this and this distance should always be this is always supposed to be 60, and now yeah, I think now it's defined, right? Finish sketch. I move this around. Yes, I can still move it around because the main object is not defined. Yeah, it's still blue in color.
It's still blue.
Yeah, it's still blue because I can still move it around. See, when I did the initial sketch of a rectangle, I just defined it randomly. I didn't even define how far is it from the origin. Had I defined how far this is from the origin, for example, I use d and say this distance and this distance is always supposed to be 100, and this distance and this distance is supposed to be 200, and also this dimension is supposed to be 400, and this dimension is supposed to be 200. the dimension that I have not defined here. I have defined this distance, I have defined this distance. I have not defined this is defined, this is defined. Dimension between this what is the other constraint that is not being defined in this?
You can still rotate that rectangle, that is why it is still blue.
But how do I define it now in terms of, does it mean that I have to define angle here? No. Wow. I think the first time I have not defined anything without constraints. This can be moved because I have not defined that distance. Suppose I define this distance in my sketch. Distance between this and this is supposed to be this and this supposed to be. Hey, wait! I think I did it on. Oh God! Delete. I have not taken the origin. I have taken that other point, which is not defined at all. Okay, let me just make these boxes again, and then delete this, and then define the constraints, telling this distance to the origin is 100. Yeah, and then this distance to this origin is 200. Yeah, now it's constrained, primarily because last time what happened, I was trying to define it with respect to the other origin that was of the other circle. If you remember, from the origin to the center of the other circle was 0.001 mm, and that's the reason it was not getting defined. Now you also see other constraints on this object. Okay, zooming in, I click on create sketch. You see this option here, a small thing that you see. This actually means they equal. This and this is equal, this and this is equal, and this is also defined that way, and they're parallel. Now easier way of showing you constraints, how to use constraint, is somewhere here. Let me just show you this. I want to create a line. I have a line which I create here from the center. I want this to be about 800 mm. Okay. Now it is defined because I have set the angle of this line to be. Now I want to create another line, say L, somewhere from here to here. Okay. And this also has to be 800. 800. Oh God, shit. Control Z. This to here. I want that dimension to be. I want to create a dimension D. This to be 800 and click. Okay. Now let's define constraints. how do I define constraint? Now I want to make this parallel to this. You see that? It's now parallel. Now wherever I want to move this line, it will move only parallel to the other line. I define one constraint. Now the second constraint I want to do is make this line equal to this line. Oh, okay. If I had not defined this value, it would have become that. Great. Now another thing that I want to do is yeah, it can be moved around, right? Now another thing is I click on D again and say escape D. I want this line and this line distance to be 30. Change it to maybe 100. Yeah. Now you see, now this line is constrained. There is no way I can move this around here and there, primarily because I can do this. Yeah, that's because it's maintaining the distance between these two lines is 100 always, and also it's ensuring that the line is parallel to each other. Now another way I can define it is by telling how far this point is it from this line. Okay, so I don't have a line there, so let me just draw a line, and then I say distance between this point and this one should be 100. Now I cannot move this line anywhere. I cannot move it because it is constrained. Now this is a line which I created as a construction line. If you remember in your school geometry, when you do geometry things, when you want to draw a construction line, you make it a dotted line. There is option for you to do that here as well. To make it a dotted line, you have to click on the line and press X. The moment you press X, this becomes a construction line and it is not taken as part of your sketch. You see this? This is the construction line. Okay, cool. I'll just eliminate this. Yeah, this is a construction line, this is the line. Now we use constraint for making this parallel to each other, also the same dimension, and also distance between these lines. So this is how you define constraints, and when you define constraints, your sketches or drawings that you do are more foolproof. I mean, instead of doing something like this, you always have a constrained object, because when you are doing sketches that are bigger, if you do not have all the constraints in place, when you try moving something, something else will move and you will not have the object that you are expecting. So this is for today.
Okay. Can you also
parametric.
Tangent and no tangent and perpendicular.
Okay. Let's just okay. Do you want me to do it? And I can do a new sketch. Okay. File, new design. Okay. I want to create a top view. Now create a sketch on this plane. I want to create a line from this point to this point. It should be about 125. Enter. Over. I've created one line. Now I want to create another line. I press L. I created a line. Dimension of this I have not defined, so let's leave it there. I want this dimension to be equal to this dimension. Okay. Now how do I do it? Click on equal, click on this line and then this line. Now these two lines are of the same dimension. If I change this to 150, you will see that the line above also changes to 150. If I change this to 200, the line above also changes to 200. I'll bring it back to 100. So this is about making it equal. Now I want to make this perpendicular to this line. So you have this option called perpendicular, this line and this line. See this? But also remember, making it perpendicular does not mean that you will be able to have it exactly in the center. It will not be a perpendicular bisector. Okay. To make that, what we do is let's get coincidence, and I want this line to be coincident with this point. You see that? Now it's constrained. No, it's not constrained. Hold on. Yeah, it's this way. I can do one more thing. Create a point is symmetrical, collinear, coincident. Yeah, it says coincident, that is for constrain the position of 2 points or a point and a line or a curve together. So I cannot use it for 2 straight lines. Great. Okay, somebody is sleeping. Right. So another thing is about circles. Circle, create a circle from say here to here, and I want this line to be a tangent to this circle. So I click on tangent, select the circle, and the line, you see that the circles become a tangent to this. So the line is now the tangent to the circle. Why did the circle move down? Because this line is fixed, and only the circle is something that didn't have a defined position. So this is what is with respect to. Okay, I didn't define the diameter of the circle. Let me define the diameter to be 50, and it's done. Now you can see that you can only move this along as a tangent. If I want to define where this circle has to stay, then I have to also define a point on the circle. Let's just say create a point on the circle. No, I cannot do that way. I can define this dimension. I want the center and this line distance to be 50 always. So you have now the circle to be defined to the center, and this is how you use constraints. I hope I have clarified the questions that you had today. There's one important thing, another thing that I want to share with you, which is called parametric design. But we will do this maybe as a video, and I will share it with all of you. A small video that I'm going to do and share with you as to how you do parametric design. Why is it necessary? For example, if I want to make a square, and tomorrow, say for example a cube, 50 by 50, and I want to bring something like 50. So this is a cube that I made, and this cube tomorrow I want to change it into 100 by 100 by 100. So instead of, what I have to do is, one option is I go to the sketch, edit everything, I make this 100, I make the other side 100, I make this 100, oops, 100, enter, then this one again I make it 100, enter, and then again I go back to say finish sketch, then again modify my this one, and then say again 100, enter. And somebody tomorrow says make this 200 by 200, 200, then you have to follow a lot of steps. Instead of this, what we do is we define parameters. I have some time, I can show you now itself. Modify, change parameters. Okay, where is this option? In modify, change parameters, click on parameters. You can start defining parameters, different parameters. Say for example, length, breadth and height of the cube. So I click on user parameters, click on this and say the name of the parameter is cube length. Okay, this is cube length. My value expression is say 50. Say okay, right? Cube length is 50 mm. I have another parameter. Wait, for a cube, this will remain the same, right? So I don't have to worry about. And say okay. So when I did the sketch, instead of creating 100, what I would define it as cube length. So now I have changed the parameter. Now which means when I press cube length, it's available for me. So I select this as cube length and say enter. And this also is cube length. And finish sketch. And this also is cube length. Right? So this is the dimension. For you to know whether I have really done the changes, you need to look at a small thing here. Maybe I draw a circle, sorry, I draw another rectangle and just keep it ready so that you know that the dimensions have changed. Okay, now this is my cube where I have done the dimension setting. In case I want to change the parameter, somebody comes tomorrow and tells me, Brijesh, you have to do a bigger cube. All I do is come here, change my parameters and say this value from 50, I make it 150. Say okay. Now you see how my cube dimensions changed. And say tomorrow I have to change this to 200. I can just change it. And it changes everywhere. So this is called parametric modeling, and this is very important feature in 3D modeling, because defining constraints and defining parameters are two very important things in 3D modeling. It is not like you just use a lump of clay and then keep modeling. That's not how it happens. When you want to have an object and you want to see exactly how you rebuild it or design it, then you need to have proper measurements, and usually measurements are done using a scale. But for 3D objects, we also use something called a vernier scale. One of the sessions will also teach you how to use a vernier scale and where these scales are available for taking precise measurements, because your scale that you have measures in millimeters, but a vernier scale you can measure in 1/100th of a millimeter, sorry, 1/10th of a millimeter, 0.01 centimeter, 0.01 mm, yeah, 0.01 mm, sorry. Okay, so this is for today. Thank you for being part of this session. Our 2 trial sessions are over. We have learnt most of the challenges we have been facing in terms of recording, screen sharing, and Zoom calls and all of that. All of these things should be fixed by the time we do our next session. Our next session would be that is like coming week. Maybe we would start from tomorrow. We'll keep you posted about the sessions that are going to happen. Also, if you have your friends who you want them to attend or learn about these things, you can tag them or share it with people. We will send you a post that you can share with people, and we can have more people join the session. We'll also have practicals for you to do. We will give timeouts where you will be able to do something on your own and share it with us as well during these meetings, so that we will have more fun and we learn together. Hopefully by the end of these holidays we should have a lot of things that we have learned. Thank you so much for being part of this. You have any suggestions, you can leave a message or call us, let us know any corrections, any changes, any changes in the format in which we are doing, all of that. Suggestions are welcome. We hereby end the 2 trial sessions we've been doing. Thank you for being there.
Bye.
Bye-bye.